Hey guys, tonight we're not time travelling to plagues or pirates or medieval mud puddles. Oh no. Tonight we're going somewhere far more dangerous, far more mysterious, far more likely to give you emotional flashbacks to your parents' old photo albums. Tonight we're stepping straight into the world of dating in the 1950s. A realm of hair gel strong enough to stop a bullet, cars bigger than your apartment, and teenagers who somehow went on entire dates without texting. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, no pressure at all. And thank you for suggesting this topic. It means the world to me. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is too. Because let's be honest, someone out there is definitely listening to this at 2:17 a.m. while eating cold leftovers in bed. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft whooshing. My life is completely together, sound gets nice and cozy maybe. Tuck your feet under the blanket so you don't get ambushed by imaginary 1950s raccoons. And let's get curious for a second. Have you ever wondered, what did a romantic evening in the 1950s actually look like? How much pomade did you need before your hair qualified as a government-regulated structure? Did teenagers really share milkshakes without worrying about double-dipping, germs, or orthodontics? What were the rules for dating? And why did every single one of them sound like they were invented by someone's overly involved grandmother? Did boys actually practice leaning on cars to look cool? Did girls really iron their skirts for a date the same way we iron our resumes for job applications? And how on earth did anyone flirt before emojis existed? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1954. You're on your bed, wearing socks pulled up to a height that defies God, and your hair looks like it could survive re-entry into the atmosphere. You, my friend, have a date tonight. Good luck. You stand in the tiny pink-tiled bathroom, staring into a mirror the size of a paperback novel, preparing for the romantic evening ahead. Your tools are simple: a comb, hairspray, and the lingering hope that your bangs will behave this decade. Getting ready isn't just grooming, it's a strategic operation involving precision, determination, and the quiet panic of knowing your date might actually see you up close. The bathroom itself is doing you no favours. The humidity hangs in the air like a clingy relative, fogging the mirror the second you breathe too confidently. A single bulb buzzes overhead with the emotional stability of a dying firefly, casting a glow that manages to highlight every flaw while hiding none of your charm. You take a deep breath, which immediately backfires, because the hairspray fumes could probably dissolve calcium. You begin with the hair, because in the 1950s, hair is everything. This isn't light styling, this is architecture. You comb, tease, smooth and sculpt, praying your handiwork withstands gravity, humidity, and the emotional turbulence of teenage romance. Each curl is coaxed into place like a toddler bribed with candy. Each wave is negotiated politely, as if you're hosting a diplomatic summit between your scalp and the laws of physics. And then comes the hairspray. The can hisses like a rattlesnake, warning you about your own vanity. You hold your breath, close your eyes, and release a fine mist capable of waterproofing a basement. The smell hits instantly, a potent cocktail of aerosol, floral disappointment, and generational trauma. For a moment you wonder if future archaeologists will find your hair fully intact centuries from now, fossilised mid-flip, with your hair successfully shellacked. Successfully, you turn your attention to the face. Not too much makeup, this is the 1950s after all, where the unspoken goal is to look naturally flawless, with the help of at least 4 unnatural products. You dab on powder that smells faintly of chalk and old movie theatres. You apply a soft pink lipstick, careful not to exceed the natural lip line, because boldness is allowed only in small parent-approved doses. You lean closer to that tiny paperback mirror, trying to check your complexion, but it reflects roughly 1 square inch of your face at a time. You turn your head left, then right, then up, then down, completing the world's slowest and most unflattering panoramic scan of yourself. Every angle reveals something new you didn't want to know. A stray eyebrow hair, a rebellious freckle, a fringe that may unionize. You attempt to fix all of it with shaky precision, because getting ready in the 1950s isn't just about looking nice. It's about meeting a cultural expectation so specific it might as well have been written into law. Your mother knocks on the door, reminding you to look presentable, as if you were planning to arrive dressed as a disgruntled raccoon. Your sibling yells that they need the bathroom even though they've had the last 9 hours to use it. The door stays locked. Tonight, this 3-foot square sanctuary is yours. Finally, after brushing off your shoulders, smoothing your outfit, and doing one last prayer to the gods of adolescent vanity, you step back and examine the results. The hair, tall. The face, polished. The nerves, humming like a refrigerator left slightly ajar. You inhale, exhale, and hope your reflection doesn't crack under pressure, metaphorically or literally. You flick off the light, open the door, and step into the hallway feeling like a freshly buffed bowling trophy. You did it. You survived the bathroom battle of 1954. Too bad this was the easy part. The rest of the date still has 100 more opportunities to go sideways. You open your closet to find only 3 acceptable outfits, all of which are essentially the same sweater in different emotional states. You try each one on, stare in the mirror and wonder, does this say effortlessly charming? Or does this say my mother picked this out? Welcome to 1950s fashion, where fit, colour, and respectability all wrestle for dominance. The closet smells faintly of cedar, starch, and the quiet despair of garments that have been ironed within an inch of their life. Hanging before you is the full emotional spectrum of teenage apparel. Sweater that suggests you're responsible, sweater that suggests you're fun, and sweater that suggests you're trying too hard but will deny it if confronted. Beneath them hangs a small army of skirts, pleated, pastel, and aggressively modest. Nothing too bold, nothing too bare, nothing that says I enjoy free will. You pull one sweater from its hanger and press it against your torso, trying to imagine how it looks without actually committing to putting it on. The fabric is soft in that I was washed with actual soap flakes way. The colour is somewhere between buttercream and existential dread. You sigh, put it back, and grab the next one. This one is pink. Not soft pink, no, an assertive pink. A pink that says, I care, even when you want to say I don't care at all, I'm effortlessly cool, please believe me. You slip into it and check the mirror. It clings in all the places you didn't authorise. You tug at the hem, adjust your stance, shift your shoulders 2 millimetres to the left. No improvement. The sweater has spoken. It will not be your ally tonight. Next comes the blue one, a shade that could be called ocean breeze or grandmother's wallpaper, depending on lighting. You wiggle into your skirt, smooth the wrinkles that weren't there 5 seconds ago, and give yourself another long, overly critical examination. It's good, it's fine, it's perfectly fine. And that's the problem. Fine is the enemy of fabulous. You step back and examine the silhouette, remembering that in the 1950s, a proper outfit was practically a geometry equation. Skirt length should hit exactly mid-calf. Waist should appear smaller than it feels. Sweater should suggest form without advertising it. You turn again. You consider burning everything and starting a new life under a different identity. The clock ticks ominously in the background, reminding you that time is not your friend. You pick up a poodle skirt, wide, swishy, slightly ridiculous, and step into it. The fabric blooms around you like a parachute of teenage optimism. Paired with a simple white blouse, it actually looks sweet. Cute, even. You twirl experimentally, the skirt fanning out. For a moment, you feel like you belong in a magazine ad for milkshakes and unwavering femininity. Then you notice the wrinkle on the left side, the one that refuses to smooth out no matter how many times you press it with your palm. You frown at it like you've just discovered a personal betrayal. Fashion in the 1950s is unforgiving. One wrinkle, one loose thread, one slightly off-centre poodle applique, and suddenly you're not a charming young date, you're a cautionary tale. You return to the sweaters. You sacrifice pride, revisit the responsible sweater, and pull it back on with a resigned sigh. It fits. It's soft. It communicates a stable, sensible version of you that may or may not exist. But it works. And in this era, works is often the gold medal category. You accessorize with pearls that aren't real, socks that are starched within an inch of consciousness, and shoes polished to a level that suggests you fear God. You smooth your hair again even though nothing has moved. You breathe. You take one final look, and somehow it all comes together. Respectable, presentable, slightly terrified, but fashionably so. You step away from the mirror, flick off the closet light, and tell yourself you're ready. The sweater still might be lying, but at this point, you're both in too deep to turn back. Before you can leave the house, you must survive the parental gauntlet. Your mum asks 17 rapid-fire questions about where you're going, who you're going with, and whether you plan to be home before Eisenhower finishes his next presidential term. Your dad pretends to clean something loudly in the background as a subtle intimidation technique. It begins the moment you step into the living room, the room reserved for special occasions, formal visitors, and any event involving judgment. The plastic-covered furniture creaks ominously as your mother sits with her hands folded like a woman preparing to interview you for a job you didn't apply for. The overhead lamp flickers slightly, helpfully emphasizing the interrogation atmosphere. Your mother starts gently enough. Where are you going tonight? A simple question, yet somehow loaded with the weight of 6 generations of inherited suspicion. You answer truthfully, but she narrows her eyes anyway, as if checking your soul for inconsistencies. Then she moves on to the follow-up questions, the ones that feel less like casual curiosity and more like she's preparing to brief the United Nations. Who's driving? How fast does he drive? Has he ever driven faster than that? Has he ever thought about driving faster than that? Is he a good boy? Is he a nice boy? Does he know how to behave in public? Does he know how to behave around you? You start to wonder if your mother has been taking night classes at an interrogation academy. Meanwhile, your father stands in the corner, polishing a wrench that absolutely does not need polishing. He maintains strong eye contact with the wrench, presumably to avoid accidentally making eye contact with you and ruining the intimidating effect. Every few seconds, he clears his throat with the conviction of a man attempting to communicate an entire moral code through respiratory noise. Your little sibling lurks nearby, enjoying the spectacle like a live-action drama. They subtly munch on a cookie, delighted to witness your suffering. You will never hear the end of this, your mother continues. She asks whether your date opens doors, whether they say please and thank you, whether they come from a good household, a phrase so vague it could mean anything from nice people to they don't let raccoons inside. In 1950s parental logic, all of these questions are vital to your survival. The phone rings. You leap internally, momentarily hopeful that divine intervention might save you, but no. Your mother answers and says calmly, yes, she's about to leave, while staring directly into your soul, just to remind you that she controls the gates of freedom tonight. Then comes the critique portion of the evening. Is that what you're wearing? You nod. She tilts her head like a bird examining a shiny object, trying to calculate whether your skirt length obeys the laws of decency, or if she needs to intervene with emergency hemming. Your father grunts at the skirt, the universal paternal signal for, I'm not sure what defense mechanism I should be using, so I'll just grunt. You stand there sweating politely, reassessing your entire life. Your mother finally gives a nod, tiny, solemn, ceremonial. The blessing has been granted, but you're not free yet. Your father steps forward, still holding his unnecessary wrench. He doesn't say much, he rarely does, but he delivers a short monologue about respect and curfews, and how young people today don't always think things through. It's less of a speech and more of a theatrical performance, complete with dramatic pauses. You nod at all the appropriate times, hoping the ground will swallow you, or at least provide a distraction in the form of a minor earthquake. At last they step aside. The parental force field deactivates, and you reach for the doorknob. You can practically smell freedom. It smells like hairspray, milkshakes, and the faint whiff of teenage anxiety. Your mother calls after you with one final reminder. Be home by 10. Your father adds. 9:55. You step outside, heart racing, victorious. You've defeated the parental bosses. Too bad this is only level 1. You take a brush to your hair one final time, using enough pomade to waterproof a canoe. The goal is simple. Maintain this hairstyle through wind, car rides, and the crushing weight of teenage insecurity. You take a deep breath. Your scalp may not survive, but your look will. This is not grooming. This is commitment. Because in the 1950s, teenage hair isn't merely hair, it's a declaration of identity, social standing, and how seriously you're taking this date. Every strand must be coaxed, persuaded, or threatened into alignment. The smell of pomade fills the room, equal parts petroleum, optimism, and mild regret. It has the consistency of warm candle wax and the attitude of something that will cling to your pillowcase until at least 1963. You step closer to the mirror, tilting your head at an angle previously reserved for birds of prey and confused tourists. The lighting is unkind. Every tiny hair out of place glints like a betrayal. You smooth it down with the flat of your hand, then check again from the left, from the right, from the front, from an angle that requires minor neck contortion, but reveals whether your carefully crafted curl has turned into a tiny rebellion. If you're styling a pompadour, the stakes are even higher. It must be lofty, but not too lofty. It must swoop, but with restraint. The 1950s teen lives in fear of going too big and being compared to a startled rooster, or going too flat and being compared to a disappointed accountant. Balance is everything. You take a second to examine your tools, a comb with teeth sharp enough to qualify as a defensive weapon, a brush that's seen so much hairspray it moves like one solid piece, a tin of pomade that looks bottomless but somehow empties exactly when you need it most. You lean in and whisper encouragement to your reflection. Please just hold. And then comes the hairspray, the final act of the grooming ritual. You spray with careful, controlled bursts, trying not to choke as the mist descends like glitter from a disappointed fairy godmother. It coats everything. Your hair, your forehead, the sink, the nearby towel, your lungs. You briefly consider opening a window, but immediately remember it is illegal to allow even the smallest breeze near your hairstyle before a date. Now comes the eyebrow portion of the evening. In modern times, people might sculpt them with precision tools. In the 1950s, you simply brush them upward and hope for the best. Maybe add a hint of petroleum jelly to keep them from staging an uprising. You study your face, adjusting your smile slightly. Too wide, and you look unhinged. Too small, and you look like someone asked you a math question. You settle on a soft, neutral smile, the kind that suggests friendliness but not desperation, confidence but not arrogance. A smile that says, I am emotionally stable enough for this milkshake. You splash on a bit of aftershave, instantly regretting your life choices as your pores ignite. The scent is sharp, crisp, and reminiscent of pine trees mixed with corporate ambition. It stings, but that's how you know it's working. Beauty is pain, and teenage grooming is apparently a contact sport. You take a step back, performing the final ritual, the full rotation check. You turn slowly, examining your reflection from every possible angle. You test your hairstyle's structural integrity with a gentle headshake. Nothing moves. Good. That means you've done it correctly or used enough product to be classified as a fire hazard. You inhale deeply, feeling your lungs fill with a mixture of hope and aerosol. The outfit is ready, the hair is set, the face is composed. The nerves, however, are vibrating like a telephone wire in a windstorm, but that's part of the ritual too. The grooming isn't just about looking good, it's about preparing yourself. As you stare into the mirror, you're not just a teenager with a comb and a questionable amount of pomade. You're someone about to step into a world of jukeboxes, milkshakes, and potential romance. You grab the comb and tuck it into your pocket for emergency touch-ups. The 1950s equivalent of a modern emotional support water bottle. And as you head toward the door, hair unbudging, face polished, confidence trembling ever so slightly, you can't help but feel proud. Your scalp may never forgive you, but your look absolutely will. Your date pulls up in a car the size of an aircraft carrier, painted in a colour no modern manufacturer would dare replicate. The chrome sparkles. The bench seats stretch endlessly. You climb in, aware that this vehicle has no seatbelts, no airbags, and no emotional safety net. The door closes behind you with a metallic thunk so heavy and final, it feels like you've just been locked inside a very stylish submarine. The interior smells like vinyl, gasoline, and faint lingering notes of whatever cologne your date over-applied in a moment of nervous optimism. The dashboard stretches out before you like the control panel of a mid-century spaceship. All knobs, dials, and unlabeled switches that probably operate mysterious functions no one has identified since 1952. You settle into the bench seat, which is less of a seat and more of a padded continent. It's wide enough for 5 teenagers, or 3 if they're trying to appear aloof. You slide across the slick surface involuntarily every time the car shifts, like you're reenacting a slow, graceful landslide. There's nothing to hold on to except the door handle and your rapidly dissolving sense of stability. Your date shifts into drive, and the entire car shudders like a creature waking from a long nap. The engine hums, growls, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrates through your ribs. This is not the quiet purr of a modern hybrid. This is a mechanical dragon fueled by leaded gas and questionable engineering decisions, roaring its way into the night. As the car rolls forward, you immediately feel the absence of seatbelts. There's only faith, friction, and the faint hope that if something goes wrong, the sheer amount of steel around you will negotiate with physics on your behalf. You brace yourself subtly, trying not to look like you're preparing for impact. Your date smiles casually, one hand resting on the massive steering wheel, a circle so large it could double as exercise equipment. Streetlights flicker across the chrome, creating little bursts of reflected stars that dance around the cabin. The wind rushes through the half-open window, carrying with it the smell of freshly cut grass, neighbourhoods quiet for the evening, and the faint sweetness of someone nearby baking something you wish you were eating instead of feeling nauseous from the ride. The radio crackles, its speaker slightly fuzzy, as a DJ introduces a doo-wop track with too much enthusiasm. The music fills the car with warm, nostalgic harmonies, the soundtrack of 1950s, romance, teenage longing, and the occasional mechanical rattle coming from somewhere under the hood. Your date taps the rhythm on the steering wheel, confident, charming, or at least doing a decent impression of someone who is. You watch their profile in the neon glow of passing signs, a mix of nervousness, pride, and that universal teenage mindset of please think I'm cool. The truth is, controlling a 2-ton rolling fortress automatically grants them a few points of confidence, whether deserved or not. The car hits a tiny bump in the road, and the suspension responds theatrically, bouncing you both in a gentle, rubbery wave. You cling to the seat with your fingertips, trying not to slide into your date like an accidental tackle. They don't notice, or they pretend not to, which is strangely more stressful. And then there's the sound, that unmistakable metallic plastic blend of every object in the glove compartment jangling with each turn. Maps, a flashlight, possibly a wrench, a family of mints that expired during the Truman administration. It's a symphony of tiny objects, reminding you that this vehicle is not just transportation, it's a roaming chapter of someone's life. You glance out the window and see the world gliding past. Diners glowing softly, houses with warm porch lights, teenagers on sidewalks pretending not to stare at each other. Everything feels dreamy, soft-edged, like the car is floating through a postcard. You inhale, exhale, and settle just a little deeper into the slippery seat. This may be the most dangerous machine you've ever been in, but it's also somehow magical. Because despite its size, its noise, its total lack of safety features, this gleaming metal beast is carrying you toward possibility, even if it might also carry you directly into a ditch if the steering wheel sneezes. The radio crackles with a warm hum of doo-wop harmonies and early rock and roll. Every song sounds like it was written specifically to soundtrack awkward teenagers trying to make eye contact. The music fills the car, softening nerves and elevating the night from ordinary to cinematic. The speakers aren't exactly high quality, in fact. They buzz faintly every time the bass kicks in, like a bee got trapped inside and decided to contribute harmonies. But somehow that only makes the music feel more intimate, more handmade, like it's being played live by a tiny band hidden in the glove compartment. The warm distortion wraps around you like a cozy, slightly fuzzy blanket, stitched from teenage dreams and mild acoustic suffering. Your date reaches over and twists the radio dial, searching for the perfect song. The knob clicks and clacks through frequencies, each adjustment delivering a different burst of static, an advertisement for toothpaste, and the occasional weather update nobody asked for. Then, like magic, the signal locks back onto a melody so buttery smooth, it practically melts into your ears. The singer croons about holding hands under the boardwalk, or slow dancing in the moonlight, or gazing longingly into someone's eyes without fainting. You swallow hard. These songs were not designed for emotionally overwhelmed teenagers in slippery bench seats. Yet here you are, being gently serenaded by the collective romantic expectations of an entire decade. As the chorus swells, you sneak a glance at your date. They do the same. You immediately both look away, pretending to be extremely invested in the scenery outside. A passing lamppost has never seemed so captivating. The music, however, is persistent. It keeps urging you both to relax, to lean in later, maybe even to hold hands if you're feeling particularly wild. The car bumps along the road, and the vibrations mingle with the bass, creating a sort of full-body experience. If modern music is crisp and polished, 1950s radio is warm and wobbly, like someone holding a candle in their hands while singing directly into your soul. The melodies don't command you, they nudge you. They whisper, "Hey, maybe you're braver than you think." Another song fades in, this one with harmonies so tight they feel like a hug. You listen to the layered voices, tenor, baritone, that one guy in the back hitting impossibly high notes, and suddenly the air seems softer. The car seems smaller, cozier. Even the anxiety swirling in your stomach feels slightly choreographed, as if preparing for its own synchronized dance number. The DJ breaks in briefly, announcing the next track with a voice so smooth He could probably sell you a dishwasher and you'd thank him for the opportunity. He says something about young love, long summer nights, and dedicating this next song to all you cool cats cruising out there tonight. You have never felt simultaneously more included and more unworthy. Your date taps the steering wheel to the beat, a casual gesture meant to signal confidence. You nod along, pretending your tapping foot isn't betraying the chaotic energy of a small, nervous mammal. You roll the window down a couple inches. The warm evening breeze mixes with the music, carrying hints of freshly cut grass, someone's barbecue, and the faint metallic scent of other giant mid-century cars drifting along the road. Everything feels like part of the soundtrack, like the world itself is in on the moment. As the next love song begins, your heartbeat syncs subtly with the rhythm. Not in an overly dramatic way, more like a gentle reminder that, yes, you are alive, yes, this is happening, and yes, this music is absolutely exaggerating your emotions on purpose. You lean back into the bench seat, letting the harmony wash over you. Even your nerves seem to loosen, as though the doo-wop group harmonizing through the static is personally coaching you through your self-consciousness. And for a brief cinematic moment, illuminated by headlights, wrapped in melody, sitting beside someone whose presence makes your palms act weird, you feel like the main character, which is ironic, because the radio is doing 90% of the work. The drive-in theatre glows ahead like a beacon of teenage possibility. Rows of cars line up, windows cracked open, speakers hanging like tiny metallic parrots. The smell of popcorn floats through the evening air. You settle into your seat, unsure if you're here for the movie or the atmosphere of collective teenage yearning. The giant screen towers above the lot, a glowing rectangle promising adventure, romance, or at the very least an excuse to stare at something that isn't your date's face while you attempt to regulate your breathing. The air buzzes softly with engine rumbles, muffled chatter, and the occasional honk of someone who cannot reverse park to save their life. Your date pulls into a spot that seems strategically chosen. Not too close to the screen, not too far, and just far enough away from the concession stand that the smell of hot dogs won't overpower the emotional ambience. They roll the window down and hook the drive-in speaker onto the window frame. It dangles there like a metal bird waiting to sing. When the movie audio crackles through it, you wince slightly, but in a nostalgic way, like someone remembering how charming inconvenience used to be. You glance around. Every car contains its own tiny social microclimate. Some couples are already sharing popcorn, heads tilted together like synchronized owls. Others sit rigidly, unsure how close they're allowed to scoot. A few kids in the back rows have absolutely no intention of watching the movie and will almost certainly be chased off by an usher at some point. Your own situation is somewhere in the middle, casual, hopeful, and lightly electrified by nerves. As the sun dips, the sky turns that soft, velvety blue that makes everything feel cinematic. The projector flickers on in dramatic fashion, spraying the opening credits across the screen like a sudden burst of magic. You feel a tiny flutter in your stomach, not from romance, but from the realization that you might not understand this movie at all. Your date hands you a milkshake they grabbed earlier, condensation forming on the outside of the paper cup. The straw is stiff, striped, and incapable of bending because 1950s innovation had not yet reached the realm of straw flexibility. You take a sip. It is thick, too thick. You pretend not to struggle even though the milkshake is clearly winning. The movie begins, some combination of dramatic music, a hero with perfect hair, and a plot that involves more running than talking. You nod thoughtfully, hoping your facial expression conveys I am engaged and intelligent, and not I have no idea who that character is. Every now and then, your date glances at you to gauge your reaction. You give a small, controlled smile, the kind that says, yes, I am watching this very closely, even though your mind is bouncing between questions like, should I adjust the way I'm sitting? Does my hair still look okay? Is my milkshake slurping too loud? What if I sneeze and ruin everything? Cars around you fog slightly as warm breath meets cool night air, creating a constellation of tiny private worlds. Someone in the next row laughs way too loudly at a joke that was not that funny. A group of kids near the concession stand drops an entire bucket of popcorn, and you all hear the tragic splatter. Halfway through the movie, your date leans slightly closer. Not enough to startle you, but enough for your pulse to react like it's trying to qualify for the Olympics. You freeze, you thaw, you adjust. You hope none of this is noticeable. Meanwhile, the movie barrels forward into increasingly absurd plot points. A dramatic chase, a shocking twist, a romantic confession delivered with all the subtlety of a marching band. You pretend to be deeply invested, even though the speaker's distortion makes half the dialogue sound like everyone is underwater. But none of that matters, because this isn't really about the movie. It's about the moment, the glowing screen, the shared milkshake, the safety of a car that smells faintly of vinyl and possibility. It's about being one teenager in a sea of teenagers, all silently hoping that whatever happens tonight becomes a memory worth keeping. As the credits roll and the projector clicks off, you realise something important. Even if you didn't understand a single scene, the night still feels magical, and the milkshake only won half the battle. You slide into a booth upholstered in a colour suspiciously similar to bubblegum and emotional volatility. The waitress calls you hon with the authority of someone who's seen every awkward date since 1947. You order a milkshake, praying you don't spill it on your date, the table, or yourself. The table is sticky, not unpleasantly sticky, but the kind of sticky that suggests thousands of teenagers before you have fought identical battles with syrup and gravity. The silver napkin dispenser gleams under the neon lights, reflecting your face at an angle that makes you question all your life choices. Your date sits across from you, trying to look cool while casually inspecting the menu, which is laminated, slightly warped, and contains at least 3 items you're fairly sure haven't existed since the Roosevelt administration. The waitress jots down your order with the speed of a court stenographer. She doesn't need to ask what size milkshake. There is only one size. Enormous. You notice she barely glances at your date, which makes you feel irrationally protective, like you must both prove yourselves worthy of diner acceptance. You glance around the room. It's a symphony of clattering plates, gossiping teenagers, and jukebox music humming in the background like a soundtrack written specifically for emotional coming-of-age moments. A group of kids in Letterman jackets crowds the booth behind you, laughing too loudly and contributing generously to the aroma of French fries. The air smells like sugar, grease, hope, and just a hint of floor cleaner. Your date folds their menu and places it on the table, like a negotiation is about to begin. You do the same, careful not to knock over the salt shaker, a feat that, for reasons unknown, feels like a test of your worth as a human being. The silence between you is soft, charged, expectant. Not uncomfortable, just fragile. Like if you say the wrong thing, the entire booth might collapse. The milkshake arrives in a tall frosted metal cup, accompanied by a single paper straw that looks deeply unprepared for the task ahead. You wrap your hands around the cup, feeling the cold seep into your palms. The whipped cream swirls proudly on top, crowned with a cherry that wobbles with every microscopic vibration. The waitress slides it across the table with the confidence of a woman who has never once dropped anything in her life. You take your first sip and instantly remember why people risk their dignity for these things. It's thick enough to challenge you, but sweet enough to reward you for trying. Your straw makes that loud, slurping echo you didn't intend, and you panic, but your date just smiles, and suddenly you don't care if the entire diner heard your beverage-related struggles. Your burger and fries arrive moments later, sizzling and steaming. You pick up a fry and blow on it, a ritual as old as the diner itself. Your date does the same. For one blissful second, you're united in the shared experience of this fry could burn my tongue clean off. A single bead of ketchup lands on your plate, narrowly avoiding your sleeve. You whisper a silent thank you to the universe. Conversation begins slowly, naturally. You talk about school, music, movies. You laugh over something small, a dropped fork, a mispronounced menu item, the way the guy in the next booth eats like he's preparing for a food-based competition. Your date's smile relaxes. You notice your own shoulders unclench. The atmosphere shifts from cautious to comfortable, from performative to genuine. Across the diner, someone plays a new song on the jukebox, something upbeat, bright, slightly romantic. You tap your foot under the table, pretending you're not doing it. Your date taps theirs too. Neither of you acknowledges this rhythmic bonding, because acknowledging it might make it real, and being a teenager is already overwhelming enough. The check eventually arrives, tucked under a tiny plastic figurine of a cow, for reasons that remain unclear. Your date reaches for it with exaggerated confidence, like they've been preparing for this moment their entire life. You offer to split. They insist it's fine, and you both engage in the delicate social choreography of polite disagreement. As you slide out of the booth, careful not to slip on the tile floor polished smoother than your nerves, you realise something important. You didn't spill the milkshake. Not on yourself, not on the table, and not on your date. In the world of teenage dining, that's what we call victory. 2 straws, 1 glass, absolute chaos. The simple act of sharing a milkshake becomes a high-pressure moment of synchronized sipping, careful eye contact and mild lactose anxiety. Romance was easier when no one was watching. The milkshake arrives with an almost ceremonial aura, a chilled glass coated in frost, crowned with whipped cream, and a single cherry placed so perfectly it feels like a witness. 2 straws stick out at angles that can only be described as confrontational. They stand there like tiny referees demanding you examine the state of your courage. Your date nudges the glass slightly toward you, a gesture meant to be casual but so loaded with meaning that you forget how to blink for several seconds. Sharing a milkshake isn't just a snack decision, it's a declaration. A step. A public contract between 2 teenagers who barely know what to do with their hands, let alone their feelings. You lean in first, cautiously, as if the straw might bite. The cold hits your lips, and the flavour is absurdly good, creamy, sweet, nostalgic, thick enough to require the upper body strength of a lumberjack. You pray your face doesn't contort into the milkshake struggle grimace that happens when you attempt to sip too confidently and fail spectacularly. Your date leans forward too. Suddenly you are 7 inches apart, sharing the world's most stressful beverage. You try not to notice the warm brush of breath, the faint scent of their shampoo, or the horrifying possibility that you might accidentally make eye contact mid-sip. Nobody warns you about the eye contact. It's too intimate, too honest, too revealing. Like staring directly into someone's diary while simultaneously trying not to dribble ice cream down your chin. You retreat, giving them space to drink, nodding politely as if you're passing a microphone during a press conference. They sip with practiced ease, and you immediately worry that you looked much less cool doing it. The milkshake settles between you again. The whipped cream leans to one side, exhausted by the emotional stakes of this moment. Outside the booth, the diner hums with life. Teenagers chat, laugh, clatter silverware, and pretend not to stare at everyone else. But here, inside your tiny vinyl bubble, time slows to a thick, syrupy drip. The jukebox hums a soft ballad. A neon sign flickers overhead like a nervous chaperone. You go in for a second sip, this time with more confidence. except the straw unexpectedly resists, creating a suction sound so loud you're fairly certain half the diner heard it. Your soul momentarily detaches from your body, but your date just grins, and somehow, miraculously, you don't perish on the spot. Sharing a milkshake also requires spatial awareness. You must navigate straw angles, head tilts, potential collisions, and the ever-present threat of accidentally bumping foreheads. You coordinate silently, like two astronauts docking in space but with more dairy and emotional turbulence. Then the unthinkable happens. Your hands brush while steadying the glass. It's brief, soft, civilized. Your brain, however, reacts as though struck by lightning. Your heart rate skyrockets. Your neck feels warm, and your ability to form sentences plummets dramatically. You pull back again, pretending to admire the dessert menu printed on the wall, a wall you have seen before, multiple times, but are now studying with the intensity of a scholar defending a thesis. Meanwhile, the milkshake continues its slow melt, blissfully unaware that it has become the mediator of a small, quiet, teenage catastrophe. A few more sips pass between you, sometimes alternating, sometimes nearly simultaneous. Each one feels slightly less terrifying than the last. Your shoulders relax, the tension loosens. The milkshake becomes less an instrument of doom and more something sweet you're simply sharing. By the time you reach the bottom of the glass, the moment has transformed. The chaos is still there, but it's softer now, familiar. You survived 2 straws. You navigated accidental brushes, eye contact, straw suction noises, and the emotional complexity of dairy-based romance. And you didn't spill anything, which in the world of teenage dating might just qualify as destiny. Flirting in the 1950s is a delicate art involving subtle glances, polite compliments, and enough emotional restraint to qualify as a competitive sport. You attempt a casual smile that hopefully says I like you and not I'm having an allergic reaction. The 1950s version of flirting isn't loud or bold or direct. It's a quiet ballet of half smiles, hushed tones, and gestures so subtle you need binoculars to spot them. Every movement carries unspoken meaning. A glance across the table, interest, a glance held too long, marriage proposal, a glance held 1 second longer than too long, scandal worthy of local gossip columns. You shift slightly in your diner booth, pretending to adjust your skirt or your jacket sleeve. What you're actually doing is recalibrating your posture into something that suggests approachability without tipping into please validate me. Your date mirrors you unconsciously, a good sign, or a terrifying one, depending on how deeply you overthink things. Conversation begins tentatively. They say something funny-ish. You laugh politely, careful not to reveal your full chaotic laugh. You say something thoughtful-ish. They nod with enthusiasm, careful not to appear overeager. This is how 1950s flirting works. Nobody reveals their entire personality at once. Everyone peels off traits gently, like they're afraid of scaring each other with excessive authenticity. Another rule: compliments must be gentle, almost whispered. Nothing too bold, nothing too direct, nothing that would send your grandmother sprinting into the nearest church pew. So when your date says, "You look very nice tonight," you feel warmth bloom in your chest. And when you reply, "I like your hair," you immediately panic. Was that too forward? Too much? Too hair-focused? You decide to shift attention to the jukebox for safety. Soft doo-wop hums in the background, providing the perfect musical bubble in which to examine your date's face without actually staring. You allow yourself a single second of eye contact before looking away at the salt shaker, like it's the most fascinating object in American history. Flirting in this era relies heavily on the look away quickly technique, an ancient ritual where you briefly lock eyes, then dart your gaze somewhere else as if the eye contact physically burned you. This signals interest mixed with shyness, mixed with overwhelming teenage hormones. Your date tries the same maneuver, glancing up just as you're glancing away, creating a rhythm of near connections that feel like a slow-motion dance choreographed by awkward cherubs. You sip your drink to steady your nerves. They sip theirs. You both pretend the simultaneous sipping wasn't a moment of cosmic synchronicity. Then comes the most terrifying flirting tool of all, body language. You angle your knees slightly toward them. They lean slightly closer. You tuck your hair behind your ear. They straighten their collar. It's like watching two nervous deer try ballroom dancing. Suddenly your date says, "I had fun tonight." Simple, soft, unmistakably flirtatious. In the 1950s, that sentence might as well be a handwritten sonnet. Your heart does that sudden, buoyant hop teenagers have been experiencing for thousands of years. You respond with a gentle, "Me too," hoping it sounds natural and not like you rehearsed it while brushing your hair earlier. The conversation softens. Your smiles grow easier. The pauses feel less like potential disasters and more like shared breaths. And then, in a bold moment of courage, your date's hand moves closer to yours on the table, not touching, not yet, but hovering near it. Close enough to feel the warmth, close enough to understand the intention. You pretend to be deeply engrossed in your menu again, but your pulse has already entered a new emotional tax bracket. This is the quiet thrill of 1950s flirting. No grand declarations, no dramatic gestures. Just two people inching toward each other through a series of shy movements, polite words, and hopeful glances. By the time the waitress comes by to refill your water glasses, you've successfully completed the first round of the most intense flirting strategy game ever invented. And somehow, despite the awkwardness, the blushing, and the constant fear of saying something irreparably weird, it feels pretty wonderful. You discuss school, music, and upcoming sock hops, all while trying not to reveal that you practiced each conversational topic in the mirror for 3 days. Teenage politeness is an Olympic-level performance. This is the part of the date no one warns you about. The delicate early stretch where every sentence must walk the tightrope between sounding intelligent and sounding like you swallowed a script written by an anxious librarian. The diner hums softly around you, neon lights flickering just enough to make everything feel dreamlike. Your date smiles politely. You smile politely. Two teenagers, each pretending to be far more composed than they feel, sitting in a booth designed for neither honesty nor elbow room. You start with the safest topic, school. You mention a class. They nod. They mention a teacher. You nod. You both laugh politely at an anecdote so mild it could be classified as distilled politeness. The conversation hangs there for a moment, not awkwardly, just gently suspended, like a soap bubble that refuses to pop. Then you shift to music. This is a slightly more dangerous topic because passion hides inside it. You talk about a song you like. Your date leans forward a fraction of an inch, enormous progress by 1950s standards, and says they like that one too. You nearly fall off the bench from relief. You casually name another favourite song, pretending you didn't strategically pick one that sounds both cultured and approachable. Your date names a band. You recognise the name vaguely enough to nod with conviction, as if you've listened to their entire discography while staring wistfully out a window. In reality, you've only heard them once on the radio while brushing your teeth, but tonight you are performing confidence. Then comes the sock hop conversation, another high-risk manoeuvre. You keep your voice steady as you ask whether they're going. They say maybe. You say maybe. Both maybes mean yes, obviously. Please ask me. But neither of you has the emotional courage to commit on record. Your milkshake sweats quietly on the table. You take a sip to buy time. Your date does the same. For a moment you're synchronized again, which feels strangely reassuring, like the universe is gently patting you on the head. The small talk continues its slow migration through acceptable 1950s categories. Movies, teachers, after-school clubs, recent funny events that aren't actually very funny but are safe, inoffensive and easy to remember. You toss out tiny pieces of your personality like breadcrumbs, watching to see whether your date gathers them or leaves them behind. Every now and then, silence creeps in, not the heavy kind, not the terrifying kind, more like a soft pause wrapped in diner noise, the clatter of dishes, the low hum of the jukebox, the distant hiss of someone grilling onions. You take these silences as opportunity to breathe, straighten your posture, and mentally review your list of backup topics. Your date uses the pauses to smile at you, tiny, tentative smiles that feel like the emotional equivalent of dipping a toe into a warm lake. And then comes the most perilous small talk moment, the humour attempt. You try out a joke, nothing bold, nothing risky, just a gentle observation about how your milkshake straw seems determined to collapse. Your date laughs, not a polite exhale. A real soft laugh that fills the booth with something warm and entirely too encouraging. Your shoulders unclench, your brain stops screaming. You allow yourself a small smile that isn't rehearsed. Your date builds on your joke with one of their own, something dorky and sweet and entirely charming. You laugh in return, maybe a little too enthusiastically, but at this point you're both off the script entirely. You've crossed into spontaneous conversation, where the sentences come easier, the pauses feel lighter, and the air shifts into something new and maybe even hopeful. By the time the waitress swings by with a check, you realise something important. You made it through without stumbling, oversharing, fainting, or revealing that you practiced talking to your own reflection for 3 days. In the world of teenage small talk, that's basically a gold medal. Your date leads you to the glowing jukebox, a towering shrine of lights and chrome. You flip through the titles searching for the perfect mood setter. Picking the wrong song could derail the entire evening, so naturally your palms begin sweating immediately. The jukebox hums softly, illuminated like a stained glass window of teenage hopes and questionable music decisions. Its colours shimmer, pink, turquoise, lemon yellow, like someone tried to design optimism using only neon and electricity. You stand before it with reverence, aware that this single machine holds the power to make you look effortlessly cool or like someone who's never heard music before in their life. Your date stands nearby, pretending to browse the fries on their plate, but very clearly monitoring your progress. This only heightens the stakes. It is no longer just a song choice. It is a statement, a declaration, a fragile, vinyl-based confession handed to someone you're not quite brave enough to confess anything to verbally. You flip through the selections with a trembling finger. Each title card clicks into place with the sound of a tiny guillotine. Doo-wop ballads, rock and roll breakout hits, slow dances, up-tempo numbers designed to coax teenagers out of their emotional shells. You scan them desperately, trying to decipher the unwritten rules of jukebox flirtation. Pick something too romantic and you risk coming on too strong. Pick something too upbeat and you risk sounding chaotic. Pick something obscure and you risk looking like you're trying too hard. Pick something too popular and you risk being predictable. There is no winning, only degrees of not losing. The pressure mounts. You wipe your palms discreetly on your skirt or pant leg, depending on your outfit. The glass of the jukebox reflects your face, which is doing something odd, a mixture of focus, panic, hope, mild indigestion from the milkshake. Your date steps closer, not uncomfortably close, but enough to set your heartbeat skittering like a loose record needle. Do you like any of these? They ask. A simple question. A terrifying question. A question that suggests they're evaluating your taste, your vibe, your entire personality in real time. You nod confidently, even though at that exact moment you recognise not a single song title. You pick one card up, squint at it, and pretend to consider its emotional weight. This one's good, you say, despite having no internal evidence to support this statement. Your date leans over your shoulder to look, and for reasons unknown, your brain immediately forgets how to function. You freeze. You forget every song title on the list. You forget your name. You forget the English language for 3 full seconds. But then, salvation arrives. A familiar tune. One you've heard on the radio. One that feels safe. Not too bold, not too boring, not too likely to make the waitress raise an eyebrow. Your heart leaps at the sight of it, fluttering like a moth suddenly spotting a porch light. You press the button. The jukebox whirs dramatically. Something clunks, something rattles, and then miraculously the record drops into place. The first notes ring out warm and crackly, like a tender greeting from a distant friend. You relax instantly. Your date smiles with something that looks suspiciously like admiration. You take a breath for what feels like the first time all night. The song swells through the diner. Teenagers nod along. Someone in a booth sings under their breath. The moment feels strangely bigger than itself. Soft, sweet, glowing around the edges. Your date leans slightly closer and says, "I love this one. Victory." You didn't just choose a song, you chose a moment, a tiny sliver of harmony in the chaotic symphony of teenage dating. You return to the booth together, and for the first time tonight the silence between you feels warm instead of fragile. As you slide into your seat, you realise something beautiful. You may not know what you're doing, but you picked the perfect song anyway. A miracle by Jukebox standards. You observe the world around you. Skirts swirl. Jackets boast stitched-on achievements, and hairstyles defy gravity. Clothing isn't just fashion. It's identity, tribe, and teenage reputation all stitched into cotton. Everywhere you look, clothing is speaking its own language. Not literally, that would be terrifying, but socially, symbolically, displaying secret codes only other teenagers seem fully fluent in. A poodle skirt twirls by, the applique bouncing with each step, practically shouting, "I understand style and also own an iron." A group of kids in Letterman jackets stroll past like a migrating herd, the sleeves creaking faintly under the weight of sports patches, academic pride and unspoken coolness. You straighten your own outfit reflexively, suddenly aware of every thread, fold, and crease. In the 1950s, what you wear doesn't just say something about you, it narrates entire chapters of your personality before you even open your mouth. You try to stand naturally, though the pressure of appearing socially acceptable tugs gently on your posture, like a grandmother adjusting your shoulders for a photo. The girls around you glide like pastel-coloured satellites. Their skirts bloom outward with every movement, an orbit of colour and motion that demands attention. Some wear cardigans buttoned with mathematical precision, each button aligned to reflect maximum composure. A few sports saddle shoes polished to a shine so bright you could probably use them to signal airplanes. The boys, meanwhile, move in clusters defined by their jackets. The Letterman jacket is less a garment and more a status symbol forged from wool and bravado. Stitched-on varsity letters flex across their chests like a resume, and those thick leather sleeves seem capable of withstanding extreme weather, peer judgment, and possibly low-grade emotional turmoil. You notice how some boys shrug their jackets off casually, as if to say, "Oh, this old thing that took me 3 years and multiple sports injuries to earn. Barely noticed it." And then there's the hair, a fashion statement all on its own. Pompadours, curls, waves, bangs sculpted so precisely they may legally qualify as engineering projects. Bobby pins gleam like metallic little soldiers, holding every strand firmly in place. Hairspray hangs in the air as a faint mist, the ghostly reminder of dozens of teenagers fighting the laws of physics earlier that evening. As you take it all in, you realise something. Fashion here isn't frivolous. It's functional. It's protective. A beautifully ironed skirt says you're put together. A crisp white t-shirt signals you understand simplicity. Rolled up sleeves hint at rebellion. A neck scarf whispers confidence. A wide belt shouts it. What you wear helps determine who talks to you, who smiles at you, who categorizes you in the grand, dizzying social ecosystem of teenage life. Your date notices you scanning the crowd and chuckles softly. Everyone looks so dressed up tonight, they say. You nod, trying not to look like you're mentally rating your own outfit on a scale of 1 to existential crisis. You tug your top into place again, smoothing invisible wrinkles, hoping you blend in just enough while still standing out appropriately, a nearly impossible teenage paradox. A gust of wind blows through the gathering, lifting skirts slightly and causing jackets to flap open like heroic capes. For a fleeting moment, the whole scene looks like a vintage advertisement brought to life. Perfect lighting, perfect silhouettes, perfect outfits arranged with cinematic flair. You almost forget how much effort went into all of this. The ironing, the pinning, the shoe polishing, the emotional conditioning required to walk confidently into public spaces as a teenager. Someone nearby compliments someone else's skirt. Another person admires a friend's jacket patch. You can feel the energy shift. Clothing isn't just armour, it's a bridge. A way of saying I see you, without having to risk the far scarier act of saying it out loud. You take a deep breath, standing a little taller in your own carefully selected ensemble. For better or worse, you belong to the great swirling tapestry of teenage fashion tonight. And honestly, your outfit is doing a lot of heavy lifting. But so are you. After the movie ends, the parking lot becomes an unofficial teenage town square. Conversations swirl, cars rev. Someone is bragging about something that definitely didn't happen. You stand there awkwardly, smiling, trying to look effortlessly cool despite having no idea what to do with your hands. The headlights from dozens of cars cast dramatic shadows across the pavement, turning every teen into a silhouette in a coming-of-age film. Engines idle, creating a low mechanical hum that blends with bursts of laughter, distant music from a car radio, and the unmistakable clatter of someone dropping their soda bottle. The air smells like exhaust, popcorn, and the faint sweetness of spilled root beer baking into the asphalt. Your date stands beside you, shifting from foot to foot, attempting that casual lean on the car pose you've seen in magazines. The one where people look smooth and confident instead of like they're afraid they're damaging the paint. You try to mirror them, resting one elbow on the car, but the angle is wrong and your elbow slides, creating a movement so chaotic you're fairly certain a few nearby teens witnessed it. Clusters form around the lot like miniature ecosystems. Over by the concession stand, a group retells the movie plot loudly and incorrectly. Near the back row, a couple sits on the hood of a car, legs swinging, pretending they're not freezing in the evening breeze. A gang of boys rev their engines in a ritualistic demonstration of horsepower-based dominance. Their cars respond with sounds ranging from impressive roars to alarming sputters. Someone nearby insists they once met the movie's lead actor in a grocery store. Another claims they've driven at least 90 miles per hour on the highway, which is interesting given their car can barely manage a confident 45. You nod politely at these stories, fully aware you're witnessing a masterclass in teenage exaggeration. Your date introduces you to their friends, a gauntlet you didn't expect but must now survive. They greet you with smiles, raised eyebrows, and knowing looks that make your heart perform a somersault. Small talk ensues, You say your name, they say theirs. Then comes the ritual of subtle scrutiny. Quick glances at your outfit, your hair, your shoes, your posture. You suddenly feel like an exhibit in a fashion museum no one asked to curate. Despite your self-consciousness, the conversations begin to loosen. Someone jokes about the movie's ridiculous ending. Another person mimics a dramatic scene, earning laughs. You chime in with a cautious comment, and to your surprise, they laugh too, warmly, genuinely. Your shoulders drop half an inch. Your lungs remember how breathing works. Then comes the hand dilemma. What do you do with them? Leaving them at your sides feels unnatural. Crossing them makes you look too stern. Putting them in your pockets risks looking disengaged. You try holding your milkshake cup, but it's empty, and pretending to sip air is not a viable long-term strategy. Eventually you decide to gesture casually as you talk, even though one of your gestures comes dangerously close to smacking your date in the arm. As the parking lot winds down, groups begin drifting away. Engines rumble to life. Couples exchange shy glances. Friends shout last-minute jokes out of open windows. Your date nudges your shoulder gently, as if checking whether you're still enjoying yourself, or still conscious after the social workout you've just endured. The breeze picks up, carrying with it a faint chill, and the comforting smell of someone's nearby cherry-flavoured car freshener. The parking lot lights buzz overhead, flickering in a way that makes the whole evening feel surreal and slightly magical. And in the middle of it all, you realise something surprising. You've survived the teenage town square. You navigated the braggers, the revers, the fashion judges, the social expectations, and the ongoing crisis involving your hands. Not flawlessly, not effortlessly, but well enough. Which, in the 1950s parking lot social universe, is nothing short of triumphant. At the school gym, the lights dim as a slow song drifts through the air. You step forward, heart thudding, hoping your dance moves resemble graceful swaying and not confused tree caught in a storm. The floor beneath your shoes is a polished battlefield, waxed just enough to offer a gentle glide, but not enough to save you from disaster if your foot placement falters. The gym smells faintly of floor polish, popcorn, and the sweaty ghosts of PE classes past. Streamers dangle from the rafters in colours that technically coordinate but feel emotionally mismatched, like someone decorated while under mild duress. Your date stands in front of you, shifting nervously. You can tell they're trying to mask their fear with an expression of studied calm, but their hands give them away, fidgeting, adjusting their sleeves, brushing imaginary lint off their jacket. You feel a strange sense of camaraderie. At least you're both suffering. Around you, couples form awkward pairs, stepping toward one another like baby deer learning to walk. Some are confident, their hands finding familiar places. Others look like they're preparing for a group project they did absolutely no research for. You hover somewhere in the middle, competent in theory, panicked in execution. Finally, your date offers their hand. You accept it. And there it is, the terrifying and electrifying realization that you are now physically connected to another human being under the scrutiny of the entire giggling gymnasium. Your free hand rests on their shoulder or shoulder-adjacent area, whichever feels safest. Their hand settles at your waist or slightly above your waist in a way that immediately sparks a crisis about appropriate proximity. You both stand still for a moment, like dancers who've forgotten the first step. Then the swaying begins. It's small at first, a polite rocking, a testing of rhythm, as if the music might suddenly shift into polka. The gym lights twinkle overhead, casting warm, dim halos that make everyone look softer, kinder, like extras in a 1950s romance film. Your heart thuds in your chest, a nervous drumbeat threatening to drown out the gentle croon of the slow ballad, floating through the speakers. You try to breathe normally. You fail. You try again. It works slightly better. Your feet move with caution, not stepping too wide, not too fast, not too inventively. Just safe, predictable steps. The universal slow dance pattern that has prevented teenage embarrassment for generations. You cling to it like a lifeline. Meanwhile, your brain is running through an overwhelming internal checklist. Am I stepping on their feet? Am I too close? Am I not close enough? Is my breath normal? What do I do with my eyebrows? Why is my hand sweating? Is their hand sweating? If both hands are sweating, does that cancel out somehow? Your date looks up at you, and for one terrifying moment you meet eyes, not glance, not flicker. Full, unbroken eye contact, the kind that makes your internal organs file resignation paperwork. But then something shifts. The panic softens, the moment steadies. You both smile, small, genuine, shy. The song continues, gently wrapping around you both like a soft blanket woven from nerves and sweetness. The world shrinks until it's just the two of you and the faint squeak of rubber soles from nearby dancers. You become aware of the warmth of their hand, the rhythm of their breathing, the fact that despite everything, you're not messing this up nearly as badly as you feared. In fact, you might even be doing okay. A chaperone strolls by with the energy of someone who has seen every possible teenage disaster and no longer fears anything. They glance at you, nod approvingly, and move on. This is the highest praise you will receive tonight. As the song winds down, couples begin to peel apart awkwardly, like magnets losing their charge. You and your date separate as well, both unsure what expression to wear now that physical contact has ended. Relief? Gratitude? Quiet celebration of personal survival? You settle for a bashful smile. Your date returns it. And in that split second, with your palm still slightly damp and your legs still recovering from their swaying ordeal, you realize you just conquered one of the most terrifying rituals of teenage romance, and nobody, not even you, fell over. Your date introduces you to their friends, a group that silently evaluates you using criteria you will never fully understand. You smile politely while internally screaming. The friends stand in a loose semicircle, each wearing an expression that ranges from mild curiosity to outright suspicion, the universal teenage greeting. They look you up and down, not maliciously but scientifically, like researchers trying to determine whether you're a new species or just a slightly upgraded version of one they've seen before. You suddenly become aware of every part of your body. Your hands, too stiff, your posture, uncertain, your smile, overachieving. Your date beams proudly, oblivious to the psychological warfare unfolding. This is them, they say, as if presenting you for judgment at an ancient ritual. You wave awkwardly, a gesture that seems to signal everything and nothing at once. The first friend, the self-appointed spokesperson, steps forward. They ask your name, your grade, maybe what clubs you belong to. It feels a bit like an oral exam, except instead of receiving a letter grade, you'll receive future gossip you'll never gain access to. You answer calmly, even though your heart is beating like a frantic telegraph operator tapping out SOS. Another friend, the quiet observer, simply watches. They're evaluating subtle things, your tone, your laugh, your overall vibe. You can practically feel their eyes taking notes. If this were modern times, they'd be scrolling through your social media right now. Here, they rely on instinct, aesthetic judgment, and whatever psychic intel teenagers acquire through mysterious social osmosis. Someone compliments your outfit. You say thank you, but because you're nervous, it comes out slightly louder than intended. A few eyebrows rise. You quickly recalibrate your volume settings. Another friend asks if you like the movie. You respond with a neutral positive comment, careful not to sound too analytical or too indifferent. You're trying to project the perfect balance, friendly but not overeager, confident but not arrogant, interesting but not so interesting that you threaten the group hierarchy. It's an emotional tightrope strung delicately across a canyon of teenage perception. Your date chimes in occasionally, a reassuring smile here, a casual joke there, acting as your emotional tour guide in this unfamiliar territory. They're trying to show you off while simultaneously showing their friends that they've made a good choice. You hope you are indeed a good choice. One friend starts recounting a recent cafeteria incident, something involving a spilled tray, 2 teachers, and a misunderstanding about mashed potatoes. You laugh at the appropriate moment, even though you didn't catch half the details. The important part is that you laughed with the group, thus signalling your willingness to assimilate. Then comes the test you didn't expect. A question about your favourite music. It's innocent enough, but you know that the answer you choose will be carefully analysed. If you pick a popular artist, you're mainstream. If you pick something obscure, you're trying too hard. You choose someone safely in the middle, delivering your answer with a level of serenity you absolutely do not feel. The group nods. You have passed for now. The conversation drifts. A girl comments on someone's new haircut. A boy brags about nearly catching a foul ball at last week's baseball game. Someone else jokes about a teacher's strictness. You relax only a little, recognizing that the tone has shifted from interrogation to something more natural. You're no longer a stranger being evaluated. You're a participant, however, tentatively. Your date leans in slightly and whispers something harmless but reassuring, like, "You're doing great." You manage a genuine smile this time, a real one, not the strained polite smile you used upon arrival when you were halfway convinced you might faint. Eventually the group disperses. Some head toward the jukebox, others wander to the concession stand, and a few drift toward their cars to continue their own social adventures. You stand there with your date, shoulders easing as the tension evaporates. You made it. You faced the group. You answered the questions. You survived the looks, the tests, the subtle judgments, and most importantly, you didn't accidentally call anyone the wrong name, which, in the social minefield of 1950s teenage life, is basically winning the Cold War. Soda shops are bustling, bright, and full of opportunities for embarrassment. You navigate the room like a diplomat, balancing your drink, your dignity, and the hope that you won't trip over a chair. The moment you push open the door, a bell jingles overhead, announcing your arrival with far more fanfare than you'd prefer. The scent of sugar, vanilla, and sizzling hamburger grease floods your senses, accompanied by the unmistakable soundtrack of clinking glasses, teen chatter, and a jukebox doing its best to compete with human noise. The soda shop is a minefield arranged in checkerboard tiles. Every surface is shiny. Chrome stools, polished counters, glass syrup dispensers lined up like soldiers. Everything reflects light in ways that make you instantly conscious of your every movement. You step carefully, weaving between tables, determined not to accidentally knock someone's sundae into their lap and become a cautionary tale for generations. Your date walks slightly ahead, confidently navigating the room, as if trained from birth for this moment. You admire them while simultaneously watching the floor with hawk-like attention. Chairs jut out at unpredictable angles. Boys perched on stools swing their legs with preteen recklessness. A girl twirls her straw wrapper absent-mindedly, a tiny paper snake waiting to trip you. You finally reach your table, a small circular booth tucked near the jukebox. You slide in with grace you absolutely did not feel, clutching your milkshake like it's a diplomatic document. Your date sits across from you, smiling warmly, unaware that your pulse is racing faster than the boy in the Letterman jacket, trying to impress his friends with arm wrestles in the corner. The waitress appears, pencil poised, ready to take your order. You consider ordering something modest, something refined, something that won't betray the fact that you're both hungry and deeply intimidated. But the soda shop itself seems to demand indulgence, so you confidently order a float, even though floats have an alarming habit of overflowing like a sugary volcano at the slightest disturbance. As you wait, you absorb the atmosphere. Teenagers are everywhere, laughing at corner tables, sharing fries, leaning on counters, doing everything in their power to appear relaxed while catastrophically failing inside. You feel seen, understood, united in collective teenage awkwardness. Your float arrives in a tall glass, fizzing dangerously, the ice cream threatening to breach the rim. You take the straw and sip with caution, the cold tickling your throat. Your date watches you fondly, but you pretend not to notice because making eye contact while consuming dairy feels illegal. Then comes the etiquette portion of the evening, the unspoken rules passed down from teenager to teenager. Rule 1. Do not slurp loudly. This is not a competitive eating contest. Rule 2. Do not spill anything. Not on the table, not on yourself, definitely not on your date. Rule 3. Do not chew the straw. Straw chewing signals chaos. Rule 4. Do not talk with whipped cream stuck to your upper lip, unless you enjoy being haunted by that memory for the rest of your life. You try to engage in conversation, but the noise level shifts constantly. Sometimes you hear every word, sometimes you catch half a sentence and nod politely as though it made perfect sense. You lean in slightly, your date leans in too, and for a moment the rest of the soda shop blurs. Then the waiter behind you drops a tray, startling everyone. A glass shatters. Someone gasps dramatically. You jump so hard your straw nearly launches itself. Your date laughs softly, and somehow that makes the embarrassment soften instead of sharpen. You take another sip to recover your dignity, only to discover your float has decided it's time to erupt. Foam bubbles upward. You panic and sip faster, creating a frantic cycle of preventing disaster and looking deeply unhinged. But your date offers you a napkin with a gentle smile, which immediately makes everything feel manageable again. The jukebox changes songs, a slower tune now, warm and nostalgic. Couples sway nearby, friends tap their feet. The soda shop feels softer around the edges, gentler, as if inviting you to relax. And you do. Because yes, soda shop etiquette is a delicate dance, a performance of grace, awareness, and strategic sipping. But you're doing it. You're balancing your drink. You're navigating the chaos. You're keeping your dignity intact. And most impressively of all, you still haven't tripped over a single chair. You reach into your pocket and realize you have exactly 75 cents to last the entire evening. Inflation hasn't hit yet, but your panic is timeless. That small handful of coins suddenly feels like the entire weight of your future. You jingle them discreetly, hoping the sound magically multiplies them. It does not. They clank around with the hollow, metallic honesty of coins that absolutely refuse to increase in value simply because your heart rate is rising. 75 cents, 3 quarters, 12 nickels, an entire universe of financial limitation. You take a quiet breath, trying to calculate the cost of everything around you. Milkshakes, jukebox songs, fries, emergency fries, post-fries mints, and anything else you may be socially pressured into participating in. The numbers blur together, and suddenly you understand why adults stare blankly at the wall when bills arrive. Meanwhile, your date seems blissfully unaware of your financial cliffside. They smile at you, chatting easily, unaware that you're doing intense economic math normally reserved for national budgets. You mentally review the situation. A milkshake is 20 cents, a burger is 30, a jukebox play, a dime, a second jukebox play when the first song accidentally sets the wrong romantic tone, another dime, your coins are already sweating. You consider the noble option of insisting you're not hungry, even though you absolutely are, and the smell of the soda shop is attacking your willpower from all angles. Grease, sugar, vanilla, and teenage desperation weave together into a scent so powerful you nearly give in. But this is a 1950s date, which means the unspoken expectation is that you appear calm, composed, and financially solvent, even when you absolutely are not. So, you nod politely as your date suggests grabbing something small, which sounds comforting until you realise that in diner terms, something small cost at least 15 cents. Your fingers remain in your pocket, clutching the coins like they might escape if given too much freedom. Your brain races with strategies. Eat slowly so you don't need seconds. Suggest sharing food under the guise of romance rather than thrift. Avoid jukebox proximity. Pretend you have a mild aversion to fries. Casually mention how refreshing water is. It's all damage control. Your date tells a funny story and you laugh, though your laughter is just a shade too high-pitched. The sound of a person quietly spiralling through financial crisis. They don't notice. You return to scanning the menu, covertly searching for the cheapest possible item, as if hidden value meals might suddenly appear if you squint hard enough. When the waitress arrives, pen poised, you panic and blurt out something that sounds reasonably affordable. A soda. 12 cents. Manageable. Respectable. Slightly tragic, but manageable. Your date orders something larger, something with ingredients that clearly cost more than your entire allowance. You smile warmly, pretending not to mentally subtract the remaining minutes of the date from your remaining cents. The soda arrives in a tall, sweating glass. You take a slow sip, savouring it as though it's liquid gold, the nectar of responsible budgeting. In a way it is. As the evening goes on, you master the art of appearing generous in spirit while being fiscally cautious. You compliment the decor. You engage in conversation. You laugh at jokes. You avoid the jukebox like it owes you money. When someone suggests ordering fries for the table, you nod enthusiastically while praying no one expects you to contribute 12.5 cents toward the cause. Despite everything, the night unfolds gently, pleasantly. Your date smiles at you often. The soda shop glows. The music carries you through each moment. No one, not even you, brings up finances. And when the bill finally arrives, your date casually says, "Don't worry, I've got it." With the breezy generosity of a person who had $1.50 to start the night. You exhale so deeply it could qualify as wind erosion. As you both leave the diner, walking toward the car, toward the next part of the evening, you touch the remaining quarters in your pocket and smile. You have survived the great 1950s teen allowance crisis, and you still have 38 cents left, an absolute fortune. A gust of wind brushes past, threatening your carefully sculpted hairstyle. You pause, calculating your losses, and pray quietly to the spirit of Aquanet. It's an instinctive reaction, a sudden stillness, the kind a gazelle exhibits when sensing danger. Your hand hovers near your hair without touching it, because touching it would disrupt the delicate architectural integrity you spent 45 minutes constructing earlier. You can practically hear the faint vibration of bobby pins clinging to life. Your date doesn't notice your internal meltdown. They talk cheerfully as the two of you walk along the sidewalk, the street lamps casting soft pools of golden light. You nod politely, while secretly monitoring every shift of the breeze, every flutter of your bangs, every whisper of the atmosphere that might bring disaster. In the 1950s, hair isn't just hair. It's social survival. It's your entire emotional support system held together by petroleum-based styling products and hope. Your hairstyle communicates who you are before you've said a word. Tidy, rebellious, elegant, daring. And at this moment, it's clinging to its shape like a tiny determined soldier on the front lines of romance. The wind picks up again, more aggressively this time, swirling around your curls with the confidence of someone who's never styled hair before. You feel the shift, a tiny lift, a slight wobble. You inhale sharply. Your date glances at you, puzzled, unaware of how close you came to total aesthetic collapse. You smile, pretending everything is fine. It is not fine. As you walk, you mentally review your options. Option 1. Find a sheltered area, preferably indoors, preferably hermetically sealed, and remain there until the wind dies down sometime next spring. Option 2. Use your hand as a portable windbreak, subtly cupping the side of your head like you're deep in thought. Option 3. Pretend your hair is naturally this voluminous and that the increased bounce is intentional. You choose option 2, but your date misinterprets the gesture as deep introspection, which ironically makes you appear more mysterious than you've ever intended to be. They compliment your thoughtful nature, and you nod again, while your internal monologue is less about philosophy and more about structural hair engineering. Every few steps you perform a silent check. Does everything feel secure? Do you feel the dreaded shift of a loosened curl? Are you exuding confidence or visible panic? The night continues. You climb into the car very carefully, one hand guarding your hair from disturbing the roof. You sit upright, because leaning back would flatten your hairstyle and undo hours of preparation. This posture is not comfortable, but neither is the idea of appearing in public with deflated curls. Your date drives with the windows cracked, letting in a warm breeze. You subtly reach over and close your window with the calmness of a diplomat averting a crisis. Your date doesn't question it. They simply adjust the radio, oblivious to how narrowly your hairstyle escaped catastrophe. When you arrive at the next stop, the diner, the boardwalk, the drive-in, you step out cautiously, performing another silent inventory. Everything appears intact. Your hair has survived the journey. You allow yourself to breathe again. Inside, you catch sight of yourself in a reflective surface, the chrome panel of a jukebox, the dark window of a parked car, or the glass of a storefront. The reflection is reassuring. Your curls still swoop gracefully. Your bangs still hover with purpose. The volume is still flattering rather than frightening. Your date compliments your hair and you feel a wave of relief so powerful it could power the entire soda shop for the evening. Thanks, you say, casually. Internally, you're whispering a hymn of gratitude to the hair gods. The night wears on, the wind calms, you relax. You even laugh, really laugh, letting your shoulders drop for the first time since the initial gust of betrayal. The evening feels lighter now that your hair is no longer under siege. By the time you return home, your hairstyle is still miraculously recognizable, a little wilted, a little looser, but valiant. A true survivor of teenage romance. You step inside, exhale deeply, and finally run your fingers through your hair. 1,000 bobby pins clatter dramatically to the floor. But it doesn't matter. You made it. And so did your curls, mostly. Before heading into the next part of the night, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the rearview mirror. You give yourself a quiet pep talk. Because if adults can do it in the bathroom at work, teenagers can do it before a date. You lean closer to the mirror, the car's interior light casting a warm glow across your face, softening every nervous detail. The mirror is slightly smudged from fingerprints, countless teenagers before you have clearly used it for their own emotional recalibration. But it reflects just enough to give you the clarity you need. You look fine, you look good. You look like someone who might survive the rest of this date with some dignity still intact. Your reflection stares back at you, eyes wide with a blend of excitement and full-scale panic. You take a slow breath. the kind that fills your chest with both hope and mild dread. Okay, you whisper to yourself, we can do this. The car's upholstery absorbs your declaration like a loyal confidant. You adjust your collar, then your hair, then your collar again because you weren't sure you did it right the first time. You tilt your head to the left, then to the right, examining every angle like you're conducting a very polite interrogation of your own face. Your reflection says nothing, which you appreciate. You're not ready to be contradicted by a mirror tonight. Your date sits patiently outside the car, stretching their legs or checking the parking lot scene. You know you only have a moment before they peek back in to make sure you didn't fall out of the door. So the pep talk becomes urgent. Remember, you murmur to yourself you're composed. You are charming. You're capable of speaking actual sentences. You pause. That last one feels ambitious, but you keep it anyway. And your hair still looks okay. Mostly. Probably. You smooth your bangs, which have decided to express emotional independence at the worst possible time. You gently persuade them back into position, whispering a threat of hairspray reinforcement if they disobey again. They settle reluctantly but obedient enough. The mirror offers a faint supportive shimmer. Outside, the world feels large and noisy. Teenagers laughing, cars idling, music floating through the air like smoke signals of romance and chaos. Inside the car, though, it's just you and your reflection, having a private council meeting about courage. You practice your smile, not too wide, not too timid. Something that says, I am relaxed and definitely not spiraling internally. You test a few versions, landing on one that feels authentic enough to pass inspection. Next comes posture. You sit straighter, shoulders down, chin level. Immediately you look like you're posing for a graduation photo. Too much. You adjust again until you find a posture that looks like calm teenager instead of nervous Victorian doll. Then the deeper pep talk begins, the one under the surface, the one no teacher ever teaches you, the one every teenager eventually invents out of necessity. You're doing fine. You tell yourself, you're not messing this up. They like you. You're allowed to be nervous. And if something awkward happens, we will cope. We will survive. We will laugh about it someday. You exhale. The condensation fogs the mirror for a moment, giving you a dreamy, cinematic blur. When it clears, your reflection looks steadier, a little stronger. That's the magic of pep talks. They remind you you're capable, even when your stomach disagrees. You give yourself one last nod, the universal sign of emotional readiness, and reach for the door handle. Your hand trembles only slightly. Progress. When you step out into the night, your date looks at you with a warm smile, unaware that you've just delivered a TED talk to yourself in the back seat. You smile back, the one you practiced, the one that finally feels real. And as you walk forward into whatever comes next, the mirror stays behind, holding your reflection and all the whispered courage you left there. The pep talk worked, at least enough to get you through the next 30 minutes. Your date says something is real gone and you pretend to understand. The slang is evolving rapidly and you're absolutely not keeping up. You nod enthusiastically, hoping your expression reads as yes, totally. I too am familiar with the modern lexicon of youthful exuberance and not, please help me. I'm hanging on to this conversation by a thread. The 1950s teen vocabulary is like its own shadowy language, half jazz culture, half teenage rebellion, and entirely confusing to anyone hearing it in real time. Your date leans against a gleaming chrome bumper, hands casually in their pockets, looking impossibly cool. Man, that movie was a real gas, they say. A real gas? You consider the possibilities. Did they smell something? Is this a medical emergency? Are they reviewing the film using chemistry? You smile again, perhaps too widely, and say, for sure. You're hoping this is a universal phrase that can camouflage your ignorance. They grin back, seemingly satisfied, and keep talking. Meanwhile, your brain is sprinting to catch up, filing every unfamiliar word into a mental glossary you will almost certainly misinterpret later. You begin collecting evidence through context clues. Real gone equals good, probably. A gas equals also good, but more chaotic. Flip your lid equals get excited or possibly lose your temper, but you're not confident enough to use it yourself. Cruising for a bruising equals definitely bad. Avoid. You repeat these internally, hoping they stick. As the two of you walk toward the soda shop, your date continues their casual stream of slang, leaving your head spinning like a vinyl record. You feel like a tourist visiting a foreign country where everyone is speaking English, but with entirely different rules. The worst part? They expect you to respond. You try a safe one you've heard in passing. Neat. Your date lights up. Yeah, totally neato. Neato? You mentally add that to the glossary with a cautious star next to it. Not yet safe for personal use. Inside the soda shop, the slang environment intensifies. It's like stepping into a linguistic thunderstorm. Everywhere, teenagers are tossing around words with casual fluency. That guy's got ants in his pants. He's the big man on campus. She's the ginchiest. Don't be a wet rag. You stand there nodding politely, trying to decode whether ginchiest is a compliment, it is, or a mysterious medical condition, it is not. You sip your root beer slowly, letting the carbonation tingle on your tongue, while your brain desperately attempts to rewire itself for 1950s communication. Your date nudges your arm. Hey, that jukebox tune is really rockin', huh? This one at least you understand. You respond with confidence. Yeah, it's great, you celebrate internally. A successful conversational exchange. No confusion, no guessing, no misfires. You might actually survive this linguistic minefield. Then, feeling bold, you attempt a slang phrase of your own. You pick one you overheard earlier, mentally rehearsing it like you're preparing for a high-stakes theatrical performance. That burger was real crazy, man. Your date pauses. You freeze. A bead of sweat forms. Then they smile. Yeah, crazy good. Relief washes over you. You cannot believe it. You use slang, and it worked. You are now, officially, participating in the cultural vernacular of the decade. But the victory is short-lived. Someone nearby shouts, "Hey Daddy-O, let's make tracks." And your internal glossary immediately catches fire. You have absolutely no idea what was just said. Are they leaving? Are they dancing? Are they going to commit a crime? You will never know. Your date sees your confusion and laughs softly. A kind laugh, not a mocking one. Don't worry, they say. You'll pick it up. You nod, comforted, even though you know deep down that you absolutely will not pick it up. Not tonight. Not ever. The slang of the 1950s moves too fast, too loose, with the unpredictable nature of teenagers inventing language as they go. Still, you try. You listen. You learn enough to survive. By the end of the night, you've mastered exactly 3 phrases, misused at least 2 more, and nodded your way through 25 unfamiliar expressions. And somehow, your date thinks you're the ginchiest anyway. Every activity presents a new threat to your outfit. Ketchup drips, mud puddles, open flames. You spend half the night dodging hazards like a 1950s fashion ninja. You are not prepared for the sheer volume of dangers awaiting a teenager in freshly ironed clothing. The world feels booby-trapped. Every step, every bite of food, every overly enthusiastic gesture your date makes has the potential to unravel hours of careful grooming, folding, starching, and existential crisis. You begin the evening believing your outfit is strong, stable, and dependable, a loyal companion. But the moment you step outside, you realize your clothing is more like a fragile diplomatic treaty between you and the universe. A treaty the universe is absolutely prepared to violate. The first threat arrives at the soda shop: ketchup. It glistens menacingly atop fries everywhere you look, dripping off other teenagers' plates like molten red doom. You hold your breath each time someone passes by your booth carrying a tray, silently begging the laws of physics to remain loyal just this once. When your date slides you a basket of fries, you treat each one like it's coated in radioactive material. Your movements become precise, deliberate, slow motion. Next hazard, milkshake condensation. It creeps down the side of your glass in a single bead, then another, forming a precarious droplet that threatens to fall toward your sleeve. You jerk your arm away just in time, looking like someone who's been lightly electrocuted but relieved nonetheless. Your date notices none of this, blissfully unaware that you are currently engaging in high-stakes textile preservation. At the movie, you encounter threat level 2, mud. The parking lot is dotted with puddles left behind by a recent drizzle. These puddles are not innocent. They are lying in wait, disguised as harmless little mirrors reflecting the marquee lights. You tiptoe around them with the delicacy of a ballet dancer who fears both water and public embarrassment. Your date offers you a hand, thinking they're being chivalrous, when in truth you are clinging to them for balance like a tourist navigating a rope bridge. And then the campfire situation. Someone across the lot has decided that the night calls for roasting marshmallows over a makeshift fire pit. The flames flicker invitingly, but you see only danger. Sparks. Smoke. Floating embers that could land on your outfit and instantly transform you into a cautionary tale mentioned in homeroom the next morning. Your date steps closer to the fire. You remain several paces behind, smiling politely while maintaining a healthy safety perimeter, wide enough to discourage any fabric-to-flame interaction. You pretend you're admiring the stars, the night air, the ambience. Really, you're conducting a risk assessment and concluding the answer is always no. Back inside the car, you take a moment to smooth your outfit, mentally commend yourself and whisper a gentle affirmation to your clothing for surviving thus far. Your date thinks you're adjusting your seatbelt, which doesn't exist yet, but really you're restoring order to a skirt that almost met its end thanks to a rogue popcorn kernel. Later, at the drive-in, the hazards evolve into airborne popcorn, sloshing soda cups, and the unpredictable enthusiasm of nearby teenagers who gesticulate wildly when describing movie scenes. Every flailing arm feels like a potential stain. Every burst of laughter near your cup makes you flinch. You dodge spills with the reflexes of a cat who knows furniture is wet paint. Through it all, you maintain a calm, composed exterior. You nod, you smile, you laugh, all while mentally performing acrobatics to avoid ketchup, mud, milkshake foam, ash, condiments, and elements unknown to science. Finally, when the night winds down and you return home, you rush inside and inspect your clothing in the mirror like a detective searching for clues. And somehow, miraculously, you've survived. No stains, no scorch marks, no tragic milkshake splatters, just the faint smell of hairspray and the lingering relief of a teenager who successfully avoided disaster. You may not feel like a hero, but trust me tonight, you absolutely dressed and dodged like one. You finally muster the courage to give a sincere compliment. It comes out shakier than expected, but the smile you receive in return is absolutely worth the internal meltdown. The moment hangs in the air like a delicate soap bubble, shimmering, fragile, seconds away from popping if you breathe wrong. You didn't plan to compliment them right then. The words simply slipped out, caught somewhere between enthusiasm and survival instinct. Your voice wobbled, your heart skipped, and your lungs forgot their job entirely. But you said it, and now there's no going back. Your date blinks, surprised, but delighted. Their smile blooms slowly, gently, like a dawn rising across their face. It's warm. It's genuine. It's the sort of smile that makes every awkward moment you've endured tonight feel suddenly worthwhile. You inhale sharply, hoping the oxygen will help reboot your brain, which is temporarily shut down to avoid exploding from emotional intensity. Compliments in the 1950s aren't flashy. They're quiet, earnest, tender things wrapped in shyness and caution. No one's out here calling someone hot or stunning or unbelievably magnetic. Instead, you choose words like nice or really pretty, or you look great tonight. Each one carefully measured to avoid scandal while still conveying affection. But even those small words feel enormous when spoken aloud. Your hands feel strangely warm. Your cheeks heat up. You wonder if everyone in a 5-mile radius can hear your heartbeat because it's pounding loud enough to qualify as percussion for the jukebox. You want to pretend you're calm, cool, collected, but inside you're a small nervous radiostatic cloud, desperately hoping the moment wasn't embarrassing. Your date looks away for a second, bashfully, then back at you with a glow that says the compliment landed exactly where it was supposed to. They murmur a soft thank you, their voice quieter than usual, like they're tucking the compliment into a special mental drawer for safekeeping. And suddenly, the air shifts. The space between you feels warmer, softer, less like two strangers fumbling through the rituals of teenage romance, and more like two people cautiously, beautifully stepping into something new. There's a charge, not dramatic electricity, just the gentle spark that happens when courage is rewarded. You walk together down the sidewalk, your date kicking a pebble lightly, their shoulders brushing yours occasionally. Each accidental touch sends a tiny shockwave through your nervous system. You wonder if they feel it too, or if you're just having another internal meltdown. Possibly both. You replay the compliment in your mind, cringing at the trembling in your voice, then uncringing when you remember their smile. You think about saying more, maybe another compliment, but no, that feels too bold, too risky. Compliments are like firecrackers, delightful sparingly, dangerous if overused. Your date breaks the silence. "That was really nice of you to say," they remark. Their tone soft, almost musical. You swallow, because their reaction somehow makes the moment even more overwhelming. You manage a small, shy grin in response. The streetlights cast long, golden shadows across the pavement. A soft breeze drifts by, gentle this time, not threatening your hair or your emotional stability. Somewhere in the distance, a car honks lazily, reminding you that the world is still spinning, even as your internal world floats in a slow-motion haze of admiration and panic. You reach the car again, and your date opens the door for you. A subtle gesture, but one that feels sweeter after the compliment. As you slide in, they linger for a second, looking at you like they're seeing you in a new way, with curiosity, with fondness, with maybe a hint of something more. The drive continues, the radio hums softly, the night stretches onward, glowing with possibility, and underneath it all you realise something beautiful. You took the risk. You survived the internal earthquake, and your courage created a moment you'll remember far longer than the movie, the milkshake, or any song the jukebox played. Because sometimes the smallest compliment is the biggest leap, and tonight you landed it. The world quiets, streetlights glow, you walk side by side, absorbing the soft peace of the evening, a moment suspended between youth and possibility. The night air feels cooler now, calm in a way that only a small town after sunset can manage. The steady rhythm of your footsteps falls into sync with your date's almost without effort, like two metronomes gradually aligning. You notice the sound, soft scuffs against the sidewalk, a gentle cadence marking the slow unwinding of the evening. It feels like the earth itself is telling you to breathe. Each street lamp casts a small, golden pool of light that you step into and out of, illuminating your silhouettes in soft, fleeting frames, like snapshots in an old film reel. The shadows stretch behind you, then gather beneath your feet, then stretch again, long and thin, as if trying to follow you home. You don't talk at first. You don't need to. There's a comfortable stillness between you, a shared pause that feels more intimate than any conversation you've had all night. Your date occasionally kicks a pebble down the sidewalk. You occasionally nudge a stray leaf. These tiny, aimless movements somehow feel important. The kind of quiet fidgeting that says, I'm happy, I'm nervous, I don't know where to put my energy, so here goes. You glance up at the sky. A few stars peek through the haze of town lights, blinking lazily. A soft breeze drifts by, brushing your cheeks, carrying the faint smell of grass, pavement dust, and someone's laundry fluttering on a line nearby. The suburban soundtrack whispers in the background. A dog bark, a distant television, a screen door closing blocks away. You look at your date, then quickly away, because the warmth in your chest is a little too much to stare at directly. They look at you too, but in the same shy, flickered way, as if eye contact might accidentally summon Cupid to intervene more aggressively than either of you is prepared for. Eventually one of you speaks. Not a grand question, not a dramatic confession. Just something simple. How'd you like tonight? You answer honestly. It was really nice, though the words feel small compared to everything swirling inside you. Your date smiles, the soft kind barely there, the kind that's shared only when the world has gone quiet. You hit a patch of uneven sidewalk and stumble half an inch, not enough to fall, but enough to experience your daily dose of humiliation. Your date reaches out instinctively, fingers brushing, yours in a tiny electric moment that sends your pulse into a brief tap dance. You recover quickly, mumbling, I'm good, even though your nervous system is filing paperwork about the incident. You walk a little closer after that, not holding hands, not quite touching, but close enough that your arms brush every so often. Each tiny brush feels like a message, soft, hesitant, hopeful. As you turn onto your street, the houses are dark and quiet, cozy little shapes silhouetted against the sky. Your porch light glows ahead, a small beacon marking the end of the night. You feel the moment narrowing, preparing to fold itself gently into memory. Your date slows a little. You slow too. Neither of you wants the walk to end. There's a small pause on the sidewalk, a perfectly teenage pause filled with unspoken sweetness and mild panic. You say something awkward but heartfelt. They laugh softly. You laugh too. Then comes the goodbye, that delicate, fragile little ritual teenagers have been fumbling through for generations. A smile, a shuffle, a thank you. A promise that maybe, possibly, if the stars and schedules align, you'll see each other again. As you reach your door and look back once more, your date is walking away under the warm glow of streetlights, shoulders relaxed, hands in pockets, humming the tune from the jukebox, and for the first time all night, your heart feels completely calm. The evening dissolves into a soft, glowing memory, the kind you tuck away gently, knowing it will stay with you far longer than you expect. And all from a quiet walk home under the streetlights. You stand at the edge of the porch, heart pounding as you attempt to navigate the ancient ritual of saying goodnight. A handshake, a hug, a kiss. Absolutely no one knows the rules, least of all you. The porch light flickers overhead, not enough to be romantic, not enough to be spooky, but just enough to illuminate your growing sense of panic. The wooden steps creak beneath your feet, the same way your confidence creaks under pressure. The night around you is quiet now, cicadas buzzing lazily, a dog barking far away, the faint hum of someone's television through an open window. Your date stands a few feet in front of you, shuffling their shoes against the welcome mat. You both smile, shy, uneven smiles belonging to people who have officially run out of scripted social behaviours. Everything so far tonight has been challenging, yes, but at least there were guidelines. Movies? You sit and watch. Milkshakes? You sip and panic. Slow dancing? You sway and hope gravity is kind. But porch goodbyes? This is the Olympics of teenage uncertainty. You open your mouth to speak, but the words come out in a strange hybrid of farewell and small talk. Well, this was really fun. Your date nods. Yeah, really fun. Their voice cracks half a note, which somehow makes you feel better about your own awkwardness. You both look at your feet again, then each other, then nowhere in particular. Silence settles in, a silence that is not uncomfortable, just intensely loaded, like the universe is waiting to see whether either of you will spontaneously combust. You consider the handshake option, but a handshake feels far too formal, like you're congratulating them on a successful business transaction. And a hug is bold. A hug requires arm coordination, confidence, and a basic understanding of how long is too long. It's a logistical nightmare. And a kiss? Your stomach somersaults at the thought. A kiss is the highest difficulty level, the emotional gymnastics event of teenage dating. Attempting one without proper preparation could result in catastrophic awkwardness, especially if you misjudge the distance and accidentally bonk foreheads. Your date steps a little closer, not much, just enough that your heart rate skyrockets. The porch air feels suddenly thinner. You clear your throat, hoping it sounds casual and not like you're preparing for a medical procedure. Thanks for tonight, they say, softly, their voice warm in that way that makes your insides swirl like a shaken snow globe. You respond with something equally soft. Yeah, me too. Another silence, but a good one, a fragile one. A silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. Your date shifts again, this time closer, close enough that your shoes nearly brush. You swear you can feel their warmth from inches away. The moment hangs suspended, fluttering delicately between the two of you like a moth drawn toward a porch light. Then very gently they reach out and touch your hand. Not a grab, not a hold, just a touch, a soft, barely there brush that feels like someone handing you a secret. Your breath catches. They smile shyly, and something in your chest warms so suddenly you're surprised you don't light up like the porch bulb. You smile back, your courage gathering itself in small shards. You take half a step forward, a tiny movement, but monumental. Your fingers brush theirs again, this time intentionally. They don't pull away, you don't either. And there, on that quiet porch, with the streetlight humming and the night wrapped around you like a blanket, you make a choice. A hug. A gentle one. A soft one. A thank you for this night, and also I'm terrified kind of hug. They hug you back, quickly, shyly, sweetly. When you pull away, your heart is still thudding, but in a good way, in a way that feels like something new and warm and hopeful has been tucked secretly into your pocket. Your date steps backward down the porch steps, giving one last smile. Good night, they say. Good night, you whisper. And as they walk down the glowing street, you stand there on the porch, full of adrenaline sweetness, in the overwhelming realization that the most terrifying moment of the night turned out to be the nicest one of all. You stand by the rotary phone, rehearsing your voice like you're preparing for a Broadway audition no one asked you to be in. Calling your date's house means navigating the perilous obstacle course of whoever answers first. A parent, a sibling, or worst of all, a bored grandmother with unlimited time and unlimited questions. You spin the dial, heart pounding, praying for the sweet mercy of your date picking up instead of Mr. "What are your intentions with my child?" The phone sits on a tiny hallway table, the kind every home seems to have, a small wooden pedestal dedicated to telecommunication dread. The cord coils like a sleeping snake. The rotary dial stares back at you, round and judgmental, whispering, "Are you sure?" Because once you start dialing, there's no backspace. You wipe your hands on your clothes because apparently nerves have chosen this moment to turn your palms into tiny waterfalls. You draw in a slow breath, lift the heavy receiver to your ear, and feel the weight of teenage destiny settle onto your shoulders. One number at a time, click, click, click. Each rotation of the dial feels like a year of your life passing. You listen to the faint buzzing on the other end, the prelude to potential humiliation. As it rings, you run through the script you practiced earlier in the mirror. Hi is blank there, casual, polite, non-threatening. Not, "Hello, esteemed family, I am here to court your child." Not, "Hi, yes, this is panic speaking." The call connects, and then a voice, not your date's voice. Disaster. "Hello?" says a grown-up, sounding suspiciously like someone who has opinions about your existence. Your stomach drops into your shoes. You straighten your posture instinctively, even though they cannot see you. "Hi. Hello, sir. I mean, ma'am, sorry. Is ___ home?" Smooth, flawless. A linguistic masterpiece. There's a pause. A long one. You imagine a concerned parent raising an eyebrow so sharply it could slice through aluminum. They might be evaluating your tone, your character, your entire family lineage through the sound of one shaky sentence. Finally, they called for your date, loudly. The entire household now knows you're on the phone. You consider pulling the cord out of the wall and fleeing the country. In the background you hear footsteps, a distant voice, a sibling yelling something unhelpful, possibly a dog barking, the whole audio montage of family life. Then blessedly your date picks up. "Hello," they say, out of breath, like they sprinted across the house because your name was mentioned. Your heart melts, your hands shake, your brain forgets what words are. "Oh, hi, it's me," you say, hoping your voice sounds casual instead of like someone who just fought for their life in a 1-minute interaction with a parent. Your date laughs softly, a sound that makes the tension ease from your shoulders. "Hey, glad you called." Relief floods you so fast you nearly sag against the wall. The dreaded parent gauntlet has been cleared. You're in the safe zone now, a private bubble of teenage connection transmitted through crackling telephone lines. You talk about nothing, about everything, about homework, about the movie you saw, about the awkward kid in class, about how windy it was today, about topics so small and ordinary they somehow become deeply comforting. You twist the phone cord around your finger absent-mindedly, a universal teenage gesture that signals both affection and mild emotional crisis. Your date does the same on the other end. You can hear it in the soft twang of the stretching plastic. Every few minutes someone in their household yells something in the background, reminding you both that privacy is limited and time is precious. You keep talking anyway. You laugh. They laugh. Your heart performs a soft little somersault each time. Eventually, a parent voice intrudes with a firm, "It's time to hang up now." You both wilt in synchronized disappointment. "Well, good night," your date says gently. "Good night," you echo, much too softly. You hang up the receiver, placing it back onto the cradle with reverence, like it's a sacred relic that witnessed something magical. You lean against the wall, exhaling deeply. You survived the call. You conquered the house phone. You did not perish at the hands of an overly curious grandmother. And in the quiet that follows, you replay the sound of their voice, warm, happy, unmistakably glad to hear from you. Turns out the real miracle of the night wasn't surviving the call. It was hearing them smile through the phone. It's the next school day, and fate has decided you will encounter your date in the hallway for the first time since your outing. Lockers slam, textbooks clatter, and teenagers move in chaotic swarms like confused geese in saddle shoes. You try to look casual, leaning on a locker that immediately swings open, betraying you completely. Your date smiles, and somehow that's enough to survive this entire moment without evaporating from embarrassment. The hallway hums with morning energy, a mix of gossip, exhaustion, and whatever scent combination results from 20 teenagers discovering deodorant at wildly different paces. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, flickering with all the enthusiasm of a teacher in their third decade of service. You clutch your books to your chest, trying to strike the perfect balance between approachable and not currently panicking. Your date stands at the end of the corridor, framed by chaos like the calm eye of a teenage hurricane. You spot them just as someone slams a locker so loudly you jump half an inch off the ground. Smooth. Very smooth. You adjust your posture, attempting to lean casually again, this time on a different locker, one that thankfully remains closed. You push your bangs aside, hoping today's humidity hasn't betrayed you. Your date notices you noticing them, and your stomach performs a complicated gymnastic routine reserved for moments of pure adolescent terror. They start walking toward you. Time slows. The hallway noise dims. Your brain begins narrating the moment like a nature documentary on emotional survival. You wave, or at least you think you wave. It might have also been a flailing motion. Hard to say. The important thing is that they smile again. A soft, warm smile that makes every embarrassing thing you've ever done suddenly feel worth it. Hey, they say when they reach you, and somehow that one word sends your heart ricocheting around your ribcage like a wayward pinball. You respond with your own hey, though your voice cracks with the confidence of a baby bird learning to chirp. Around you, the hallway remains a battlefield. Students weaving between each other, teachers barking instructions, someone dropping a stack of papers in a dramatic flurry. But your small corner feels peaceful, or at least less dangerous than the rest of the building. Your date leans slightly on the locker next to yours, which does not open unexpectedly, and asks how your morning is going. You answer with something coherent, though later you won't remember what you said. Probably something about homework, or cereal, or how you're technically alive and surviving. They laugh, that soft, genuine laugh that immediately reassures you that you did not in fact say anything catastrophically weird. You walk together for a moment, navigating the hallway side by side. Your shoulders brush once, lightly like a whisper. You both pretend not to notice, even though every nerve in your body is absolutely noticing. Someone nearby whistles teasingly, because teenagers cannot witness a moment of tenderness without immediately ruining it. You blush. Your date rolls their eyes at the whistler in a playful, unbothered way that makes you like them even more. As you approach the point where your paths diverge, your classroom to the left, theirs to the right, the dread of small goodbyes creeps in. Not the porch goodbye, with its emotional stakes, but the hallway goodbye, which is even trickier because it requires brevity and coolness you may not possess. See you later, they ask, hopeful. Yeah, you manage smiling, definitely. And for once, you don't overthink the smile. You let it be what it is, warm, real, and just a tiny bit nervous. Your date flashes you one last grin before disappearing into the moving crowd of students. You stand there for a beat, basking in the glow of survival, before the late bell rings and startles you into sprinting toward class like a startled woodland creature. As you slide into your desk, breathless but triumphant, one thought settles in. You saw them. They saw you. And you didn't evaporate. In the brutal ecosystem of 1950s hallway interactions, that's basically legendary. Your date casually drapes their Letterman jacket over your shoulders, a gesture that in 1950s culture is basically a binding emotional contract. The jacket is warm, heavy, and smells like optimism and teenage sweat. You suddenly realise this moment will be discussed by your friends for the next 36 years. You wear it proudly while silently panicking about whether you're now someone's official sweetheart. The weight of the jacket settles over you like a dramatic prophecy. It's not just fabric, it's a social announcement, a public declaration, a wearable press release that says, "Someone likes me enough to risk property damage and social implication." The sleeves hang slightly too long. The collar brushes your chin. The wool is thick and scratchy, yet somehow comforting, like being hugged by adolescence itself. You glance at your date, who is suddenly very interested in the ground, kicking a pebble with a level of shyness that would be illegal in any other decade. They offer a small, crooked smile, the kind that says they've been thinking about doing this for days but weren't sure if they'd faint halfway through. Your heart thuds in a rhythm unfamiliar to modern medicine. Around you, the world transforms instantly. Your friends, who were previously minding their own business, now observe the scene with the scrutiny of seasoned archaeologists discovering an artifact. A few jaws drop. A couple of eyebrows rise. Somewhere a whisper starts. Faint, then stronger, weaving through the crowd like wildfire, carrying the words, "Oh my gosh, is that their jacket?" You tug at the hem self-consciously. The warmth radiating from inside feels suspiciously like emotional implication. Your date clears their throat. "You looked cold," they say, as if this isn't the romantic equivalent of kneeling in front of a jukebox and dedicating your life to someone. You thank them, your voice wobbling like a baby foal learning to stand. The jacket smells faintly of laundry soap and something uniquely theirs, maybe cologne, maybe sports equipment, maybe the distilled essence of teenage stress. You inhale it accidentally, then panic they noticed. As you begin walking together, you suddenly realize the jacket changes everything about how you move. You feel sturdier, braver, slightly ridiculous. The sleeves swish at your sides with each step, reminding you that you're currently wearing social symbolism so strong it could be submitted as evidence in a courtship trial. A group of classmates passes by. They glance at the jacket, then at you, then at your date, then back at you again, their brains doing the rapid math of teenage social hierarchy. You pretend not to notice, but absolutely do. Your date notices too. They shuffle closer, not enough to alarm you, but enough to silently confirm that, yes, they meant what the jacket suggests. Your stomach cartwheels in protest. You imagine the conversations tomorrow. Did you see who was wearing whose jacket? Do you think they're going steady? I heard they were at the soda shop together. Oh my gosh. I bet there was hand-holding. Hand-holding. The scandal. As the night continues, you become increasingly aware of the jacket's temperature-regulating properties. It's warm, much warmer than anticipated, creating a faint glow of perspiration that is definitely not helping your romantic composure. You attempt to discreetly fan yourself with your collar, but your date misinterprets this as a cute gesture, which somehow makes the moment even warmer. Still, despite the panic, despite the sudden shift in your social taxonomy, you feel something lovely blooming under all the dread. A softness, a pride, a quiet thrill that hums beneath your ribs like a tiny jukebox playing a song no one else can hear. Your date glances over again, cheeks flushed, hands shoved awkwardly into their pockets. "It looks good on you," they say. There it is, the emotional knockout punch. You smile, a real, soft, possibly stunned smile, and for the first time since the jacket touched your shoulders, you stop worrying about what it means, who saw, or what tomorrow's gossip mill will churn out. Because at this moment, wrapped in warm wool and adolescent courage, you simply feel chosen. And yes, You might panic again later, analysing every micro detail until your brain threatens a mutiny. But right now, the jacket feels perfect. Heavy, symbolic, terrifying, and perfect. The school gym is decorated with crepe paper and unspoken teenage tension. You approach the refreshments table, where bowls of punch glow with a suspicious red intensity and cookies crumble at the slightest touch. You debate whether to drink the punch, knowing it contains at least 60% sugar and 40% peer pressure. Meanwhile, you try not to spill anything on your outfit because nothing stains quite like 1950s mystery punch. The refreshment table stretches before you like a brightly coloured battlefield. Every item on display poses a unique threat to your dignity, your clothing, or your digestive system. Aluminum trays glint under fluorescent lighting, reflecting your face in distorted funhouse shapes that only worsen your anxiety. Cups are stacked precariously in a tower that would crumble if someone breathed wrong. Someone next to you coughs, and you see the cup tower wobble in real time. You grip your plate, white, flimsy, and absolutely unprepared for the amount of food it will be asked to carry. You take a breath and step closer to the punch bowl, which radiates a red glow identical to the colour TV producers use when they want to indicate danger. The ladle sits submerged, daring you to take a scoop and gamble your outfit's future. Your date stands beside you, smiling as if this whole process isn't a high-risk mission. "Want some punch?" they ask, their voice innocent. They clearly do not understand the gravity of the situation. You nod, because declining would make you seem uncool, and being uncool at a school dance is a social death sentence you are not prepared to accept. So you lift the ladle, noting its suspicious stickiness, and pour one careful scoop into a paper cup. A drop lands on the tablecloth and immediately creates a stain that looks permanent enough to be viewed in a museum one day. You hand your date a cup as well, and pretend not to notice the pungent sugar smell assaulting your senses. Together you take a cautious sip. It tastes like fruit, but also like something fruit-adjacent that was made in a laboratory. You smile politely, nodding once, the universal signal for "yes, I have consumed liquid." That is all I wish to say. Cookies sit beside the punch bowl, small crumbly discs that look harmless until you pick one up and it disintegrates like sand in your hand. You attempt to choose the sturdiest one, but even that breaks in half the moment you apply pressure. Crumbs fall like confetti onto your plate. One lands on your outfit and clings as if for dear life. You brush it off, praying your date didn't see. Unfortunately, they saw. Fortunately, they think it's adorable. You move down the refreshment line where someone's mother contributed a tray of brownies so dense they may actually form their own gravitational field. You take the smallest one, fearing that any larger piece will rip your plate clean in half. Behind you, clusters of students gather, sipping punch, whispering frantically and glancing around as if each interaction determines their entire high school trajectory. You overhear someone bragging about dancing with a senior. Someone else insists they saw their crush across the gym and nearly fainted. Teenage adrenaline thickens the air. Your date nudges you. Want to try the cookies? You glance down at the cookie graveyard on your plate. "I think I already did," you say, softly. They laugh. A real laugh, warm and sweet, and suddenly the refreshment table feels a little less hostile. Still, danger remains. A nearby freshman trips, sending their cup of punch arcing through the air in slow motion. You duck so quickly you nearly pull a muscle, watching the liquid splash harmlessly onto the floor. You exhale, grateful your outfit has once again escaped catastrophe. Your date hands you another napkin, just in case, they say. You take it with gratitude bordering on spiritual reverence. And as you both step away from the refreshment table, punch cups in hand, cookies crumbling quietly on your plates, you realize something. You navigated the most perilous part of the dance without staining your clothes, fainting, or causing a structural collapse of the cup tower in the treacherous world of 1950s refreshment tables that is nothing short of heroic. So tonight, as you settle into your soft pillows and drift deeper into that warm, quiet place where tomorrow's responsibilities can't find you, let's take a moment to think back on the absolute odyssey you survived in 1950s dating. You braved hair gel strong enough to glue a barn door shut. You faced down parents with interrogation skills that would make the CIA jealous. You navigated milkshakes, jukebox selections, diner booths, and the sheer social terror of making eye contact under fluorescent lighting. And somehow, you made it through. You even managed to enjoy yourself along the way, in that gentle, awkward, wonderful way teenagers of any decade always have. Because beneath the chrome, the poodle skirts, and the politely terrifying cultural norms, people back then were doing exactly what people now still do. Trying to feel seen. Trying to feel chosen. Trying to figure out how to be themselves while hoping their hair doesn't collapse at the worst possible moment. And it's kind of beautiful, isn't it? The way humanity keeps reaching for connection, no matter the decade, no matter the fashion disaster, no matter the awkward silences at the refreshment table. The 1950s had their rules, their rituals, their unspoken expectations, but they also had laughter, nerves, excitement, and that fluttery feeling in your chest when someone smiles at you in a way that makes the whole world soften. So maybe tonight, as you tuck yourself into your clean bed with your warm room, your soft lights, your fan humming its lullaby, whisper a quiet thank you to the ones who came before us. The ones who made it through dates without texting, survived teenage romance without spell check, and managed to build whole relationships using nothing but nerves, radio songs, and courage. Because history may be strange, charming, and occasionally ridiculous, but it's also proof that people are resilient, hopeful, and endlessly willing to risk embarrassment in the name of finding a little tenderness in a big world. So rest now. Breathe slowly. Let the nostalgia and the silliness drift away like the glow of a drive-in screen fading into night. You made it through the 1950s. You made it through the date. And now you can let sleep take over, gentle, quiet, and waiting for you just on the other side of this breath. Good night.